A very warm welcome to Emily Hett, who is joining me today. And I have to say, having been told about your work and then looked at your work on your website and Instagram, it is so wonderfully colourful. Congratulations on dull days. You must bring a lot of joy to people's lives.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And you describe your work on your website as trying to capture joy. Was that your inspiration for that particular body of work, that you just wanted to capture joyful feelings?
Well, essentially, I've always used colour in my work. So whilst I was at university, I was doing actually quite heavily political work, and everything was colourful constantly. It would always be this colour that drew everything together. And it was in one of, I think, a group session, a feedback session. And someone had said, I've noticed that even despite whatever kind of theme or whatever you're working with, that your stuff's really joyful. And it started me along this really long path of discovering of like what makes something joyful. What is it that is joyful? And obviously there's a combination of things. And there's actually a lot of psychology around it. And I just became really obsessed with making joyful things and how you can design something to be joyful. Colour's always been a theme throughout my work, but that's kind of where I started out, and just a really long path of discovery.
And your work is quite tactile as well. So do you think that there's something in the shapes that you use that also create joy or capture joy?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so much along the idea of around form and say, kind of instinctually something with, say, sharp edges and shapes is less inviting and less comforting than something with smooth surfaces. So a lot of my work, especially like the blob series, I have like really kind of organic biomorphic shapes. And when I go to shows and things, people walk past and like be patting the blobs, and that's kind of the idea of the work. It is inviting, and it makes you think and makes you kind of feel like you want to pick something up and sort of, either like the blobs like hold them, or my other work just kind of look more closely at it.
Well, it was fellow Rams's Deborah Harwood, Debs, who told me about your work. And she said, I think she was at the stand next to you at a show.
She
And she
was,
just said,
yeah.
God, it was incredible. People's reaction to the work was just really joyful. Joyful, there's that word again, but, wonderful to see.
Yeah, that's really nice. We were together at Popfest actually. I think that's the reaction that I want. I want people to feel that when they see the work, and a lot of the time people do kind of resonate with it and feel hopefully uplifted after experiencing it.
And I read you graduated from Loughborough in 2019, which was, you know, summer of 2019. Nobody knew what was going to happen within the next 6 to 9 months.
Mm.
Did you continue your colour? Did you develop your colour because we then, in March 2020, COVID came and we all went into lockdown? Did that help sustain you through that period?
I think, honestly, I was always working with colour anyway, but I suppose it was a funny time where everyone was kind of at home and then everyone started to sort of look at what was around them. So I suppose in a way I was surrounding myself with colourful artwork because it transforms a space, having that kind of array of vibrant colours, and it can uplift your mood. So it wasn't that I was trying to bring joy to that COVID period. It was just, I think, like everybody else, I was surrounding myself with creating a safe space at home, I suppose. And at that period, I was working in my shed actually, so I would have a colourful little haven in my garden shed.
And did you immediately try and start selling your work using social media, or did you just use it as a time to experiment?
So when I graduated, I started a fellowship with the university. And essentially, what happened was obviously COVID started, and then I managed to apply for some artist funding, which covered the cost of my wheel and my kiln. I'd never fired a kiln before. I knew that a bisque temperature was lower. I knew that firing was a bit higher. Like, I didn't know really what I was doing. Um, I had the shed in the garden, and obviously we had a good summer that year. So I sort of was just experimenting, trying to find what I was like making, because before I'd been working with plaster in my degree show. It wasn't actually ceramics that I was doing at university. I was always like dabbling a little bit, but it was more focused when COVID came about. And I was just sort of experimenting at that point. in terms of the work after that COVID period, I was sort of doing lots of things to keep me afloat. So I was trying to post a little bit on social media. I wasn't posting that much then. Maybe if I did something I was proud of, I'd post it and that kind of thing. But I was doing workshops, then started to do shows, markets, trying to find just get my work out there. Um, and then yeah, I continued to do that until my Instagram um took off a little bit and I was able to step back from the markets and the random kind of array of things that I was doing, I suppose, and just focus solely on the art.
And I also read on your website that it was fine art that took you to Loughborough, which obviously is a mixture of visual arts and installation and all sorts of different things. But then you went to do a placement with the Manufacturing Technology Centre in Coventry, which was product design and development. So the two don't seem to sit that closely together, or was that a part of the fine art degree?
So actually, it was a really, really interesting placement. The company itself, although they were doing product design and they're a manufacturing company, so they did all across the spectrum of manufacturing. So they do kind of like laser cutting, 3D printing, CNC machining, and essentially they had two artists in from Loughborough, and we were creating work inspired by their process. So actually, even though we were there, we weren't doing anything to do with manufacturing. We were taking inspiration from what they were doing there in creating artwork. They've grown quite quickly as a company, and it was a way of basically decorating their walls and creating something. And that's actually where a lot of my pattern work began, because one of the processes they used was looking at the metal after it's been stress tested under a microscope. And there were all these like black and white images of all this like kind of microscopic imagery. And I took all that and I was creating these really vibrant paintings. And that was actually where a lot of my pattern work began, looking at microscopic imagery. And then I continued that on through to, what it is now, really.
That's so interesting, because when I read that's what you'd done, you make the assumption, oh, you went there to try and develop a, particular product or something. That's the other way around, that product development's encouraging and inspiring art. Love it.
Yeah, it was such a unique placement. I've never really seen anything or come across even commissions like that again. Really, it was, I think, a one-off opportunity.
Because then I wondered whether that had inspired, working in a product development environment, that had inspired what you then did. But evidently not. That was a stimulus for your art along the way.
Yeah, no, it just inspired the patterns actually. So
So were you always determined that you were going to be, whether it was an applied artist or a fine artist, was that always where you were going to go with your career, either both before and after uni? You were clear with that's what you wanted to do?
actually, no. So I never did. I was always doing art at home. Like I was always sort of, painting a little bit here and there, like trying a million things, buying fabric paints and painting on fabric. I loved doing arty things. I never even considered it as a career because none of my family were artists. I didn't know any artists either that did that as a full time job. I didn't do fine art at either school or college. I did all academic subjects, and then I went to Lancaster to do geography. And three of my housemates were doing fine art, and one of my housemates that did fine art, I'm still really good friends with, and we always laugh because she always says that I was doing more art than her, and she was doing the fine art course. And I just was like, I just loved what they were doing, and I just wanted to be doing that. Geography, like it was interesting, but it wasn't my passion. And I just was looking over my shoulder thinking, I wish I was doing that. And I managed to get onto a foundation course back in Manchester and finished my year at university and did the foundation course and then managed to get into Loughborough and go and study fine art.
The world of brightly coloured objects gain is geography's loss, really.
Yeah, I was always finding a way to make colourful things in geography, like doing my notes multicolored. But yeah, and then I knew as soon as I'd made the shift, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I was kind of determined to make a career at it then.
And you said earlier you were able to get some funding during lockdown, and I know you've also done some public art projects. Was that a route you wanted to go down particularly, rather than the actual making of objects commercially to sell?
I think once I'd graduated, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do really. I'd still now actually, I'd like to do a bit of everything, but I've soon discovered that you can't do everything to a high level. You have to sort of find something that keeps that, um, well, your passion for it and keeps you focus on it. And you can't, I imagine some people can, but for me, I found doing too many things at once. I'd have a huge break from ceramics and then I'd be going back to it and picking up. And it was very stop start in both kind of the very different fields. And those opportunities came around again during just after COVID, I think it was. And Coventry was a city of culture. So had all these commission call outs and I'd seen this street dressing and I thought that could be fun, like a good way to get my name out. I was still very much finding my feet on what I was doing and trying to create as much kind of awareness of where I was. And I thought in Coventry City Centre, that's like perfect. I'm painted on site, could meet people. So that was the first big commission that I managed to get after university. And then that led me on to the bouldering wall, which was even a bigger commission through the Arts Council.
And I've also read that you did, and I particularly loved the photos of the installation you did with the textile artist, Emily Nicolaides. Did you jointly pitch for that? I was quite intrigued by the sort of juxtaposition of the work. Did you say, let's do this together, or did whoever the selector was put you together?
No, we got put together. I mean, I would never have thought that textiles and ceramic wall hangings could go together in that way. What happened with that commission was that Virgin Voyages had a contact that got in contact with a bunch of artists and they wanted to curate the space on this new ship that they were building, the cruise liner. They reached out to a few different artists. We had to kind of propose our ideas. They'd said that they wanted maybe ceramic hangings and a mural. So I kind of went through that process. The company was called Indie Wall. They were the curators of the space. And they'd said, we were thinking of you doing this collaboration with Emily, the two Emilys. She lives, not in the UK. She's not even a UK artist. Like I would never have probably even come across her work, but her stuff is beautiful. And we discussed what we wanted to do together and kind of collaborated then on our own to try and come up with ideas. And she was really influenced by kind of the blobby shapes. So she made blobby, because usually her work was traditionally round. So, and she kind of had started introducing new patterns and I was working with a slightly different color scheme and just together it worked really, really well. It was a great project. I learned a lot from that. It was quite technically difficult because obviously wall hangings on a ship and the health and safety around that and the security of it. And yeah, there was a lot learned from that. Really fun project though.
So did you go and hang it yourself, or did you just give instructions for it to be done and you didn't get to see it in actuality?
I sadly didn't get to see it in the flesh. I was supposed to be also doing a mural on the ship, but due to delays within I think there was a couple of years delay in the boat actually finishing, the timing didn't coincide with when I was supposed to be going over because I would have got to see them in person there, but I actually shipped them over. Which was quite exciting in itself, really, because, there was I think I did 28 ceramic hangings. So it was quite a big body of work and I had to send all my paints over and everything was packaged in a huge crate, and it came and got collected, which was quite exciting.
And have you ever had any feedback of people on the ship seeing your work and then getting in touch?
I haven't, but to be honest, it was only launched, I would say maybe 2-3 months ago,
Oh, really?
relatively recently.
Oh.
Yeah, it's even though the project actually, the work I did was maybe 2.5 to 3 years ago now, the ship only just left the dock a matter of months ago, which is quite
Exciting.
amazing, really. I know.
Well, who knows this summer? Somebody
Yeah.
might be wanting a lot.
Yeah, send a picture with my work. That'd be great.
You also said earlier that you would quite like to do a bit of everything, but you understood that you've kind of got to concentrate one way. What do you think was the catalyst for going down the commercial route and developing that body of work?
I think what it was because fine art itself sort of gave me this context behind my work. I knew I wanted to make joyful things. And I think that just naturally, for me, bleeds into kind of a commercial body of work. I mean, I'm not kind of a production potter, I would say. I like I like to kind of combine design and art and function and art. And I love the fact that, a mug, say, for instance, my mugs, take hours to glaze. And I like the idea of that something can be an artwork, but also have a functionality to it. And I was really intrigued in making things that fit within a home setting, but were also kind of standout pieces, if that makes sense. And I just like the idea of a cup of tea in a joyful mug. To me, is just like the perfect way to start a day. And I suppose I wanted that to be received through to the customer, and that meant a commercial body of work or a functional body of work, not just sculptural.
And you said earlier you started posting things on Instagram and you did local markets and things. How easy did you then find it to ramp that up a little bit and think, right, okay, I'm not just somebody who's doing local markets. My work is a bit more high end. The way it's priced, the way it's positioned, it's a bit more high
Yeah,
end.
yeah. Well, I think like anybody at the start, you feel sort of you were at the beginning, you don't feel comfortable charging XYZ for a piece that you've made because you don't feel that it's worth the time, the value, or anything really. So I was probably, I would say at the beginning, underselling my work really. I wasn't really selling much. I had an Etsy shop. And I would sell maybe one or two things a month. I had about 400 followers, and it all happened very strangely. It wasn't for me, it wasn't very gradual in a sense of my Instagram following. So basically, through the street dressing project that I did with Coventry, I met another artist locally, and we decided to do a exhibition at Rugby Gallery. And you hire the space, and I was making a new body of work. And because I'd sort of have been maybe focusing quite a lot on functional, and kind of abandoned the sculptural side of my work. And I'd posted a reel on Instagram. I'd not posted many before. I posted very occasionally, and it was me decorating a blob. And essentially, it went viral. I had, I think, 11 million views in 2 weeks, and I went from 400 followers to 45,000 followers. That was in 1 week. My Etsy shop sold out all the pieces that had been sat there. And I was still sort of juggling lots of other work that I'd already committed to because I wasn't really prepared for this. And obviously, this was exactly what you aim for. This is like the dream come true. But actually, when it was happening, it was quite stressful because I was inundated with messages. Just it was quite surreal, really. And looking back on it, it feels surreal. But then, obviously, at that point, I've sort of skipped out like a huge section of slow growth, and then it was a case of, right, okay, how am I going to keep on top of my shop? Because I was now trying to make more work, I suppose. And I think just focusing solely then on ceramics rather than spreading myself, I would say, developed a lot quicker than I had been doing because I'd sort of been doing it when in between jobs or in between workshops. I was then fully focused on it, and I was just selling through Instagram. I made a website and I was just selling that way then. But then quickly you realize that actually being out, being at the workshops, meeting people, that element of the practice is so important to get out of the studio as well. So then, yeah, I then started to apply for more, not your local market kind of event, more highbrow, I suppose, like Pot Fest. And this year I'm doing Celebrating Ceramics and that kind of level. Maybe just one a year I was applying for and just committing myself to that. And then, yeah, I've slowly built it from there, I suppose.
So that really is kind of that Cinderella moment, isn't it? That, suddenly, and it shows you the power of Instagram that can do
Mhm.
that. Did you get any feedback from people who were buying then, and from that what was the magic moment in the reel that made everyone go, wow, this is fantastic?
Because I've thought about this a lot. Because sometimes you'll like with Instagram, you'll make a reel, you'll be really proud of it, and it'll be the work that you're most proud of, and it doesn't do very well. Um, this particular piece, I think it was a combination of the piece was quite unique. I want to say it was a fun, blobby blob, um, and the process was interesting. I think people were drawn with the process. I'd kind of been experimenting with a lot of different ways of glazing and how to apply pattern and different surface textures to ceramics. And I think this was something that was quite new. I'd not seen that technique. It was something that I'd brought to the table myself. So I think that was a combination of those two things. And then obviously once people discover you, then they look back through your work and then it's like, oh, she does this, she does that. And then I suppose from there, if you like that person, you think, oh, I'll follow. And then that was pretty much it, really. I think I was just not, my work wasn't being seen. I only had 400 followers. My reels were getting 200 maybe views. Like I wasn't being seen. It's hard to get exposure at the start of these things, really.
Well, I think it is, and I think it's also hard. None of us really know how the algorithm works, and I know I hear people saying they've got more than 10,000 followers, but they're still not getting the views and things. So if you've got that little moment of magic, then and did you then capitalize on it? You said you had all these other things you had to juggle. Did you then think, right, I need to hire people to help me, or did you think I don't want to lose control of this? It's me that's making it. I'm not a production line.
Yeah, no, I considered lots of things at the time. I think because it was still early days, I was still sort of working things out myself. I wasn't at a place where I wanted to kind of hire anyone because, and still now, I actually have an internship program with the university. So I have had Mia last year was helping me out quite a lot. But again, for me, it's more about I'm the artist. I never want it to be that other people are making my work. I think it's really important that it comes from me. I don't see myself as a production potter. At that time when that happened, um, as well, to add context to this, it blew up in America. So I was actually shipping to America, which was all completely new. I'd never shipped abroad, and obviously the custom forms and all that kind of element to it was all new. Even packaging, sending ceramics, I'd sold a few here and there, and selling one package is different to 30, 40, 50. Um, and all of it was just a complete learning curve. Looking back, I didn't maximize on it. I did try my best to, but I wasn't really sure what to do with it, how I was going to manage this alongside, because I had loads of other commitments. I had workshops, other commissions that were non-ceramic that I was juggling at the same time. As soon as they were over, I did solely focus on the ceramics, and that wasn't because of the video. It was because that I have always loved ceramics. It was just obviously if you can't sell your work, you have to sort of do things alongside to facilitate that body of work that you want to create, I suppose. And it just allowed me to do something and do the work that I actually was truly interested in. So I just continued to make work that I wanted to, and that to continue to push pattern.
And thankfully, there's an audience there, and that's
Yeah.
right. But I was also intrigued. I saw on your website that you do mentoring and support for other makers, and I know because I do a course and Insider's Guide to Gallery Success, and I've done individual mentoring, and it it does concern me. There are an awful lot of makers and artists out there who they're not taught in art college, or if they're coming to it later in life, they have some skills that they've developed in their previous career, whatever. But there is still a realization or a lack of a realization sometimes that you're going to be a business. You're going to be in a business to business relationship with galleries or wholesalers. Do you think your experience was that what prompted you to think I want to share what I've learned along the way with other makers?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when I graduated, I had really no idea on how to navigate the fine art world, the art world. I had no idea how to navigate the whole thing. And it was only last year and when Mia came to work with me, and I just realized I was like, I'd gained all this knowledge without realizing as well. It wasn't kind of a conscious thing that I was aware of. And she was asking me questions, and I was sort of obviously easily, because this is what I do day in, day out now. And I think I picked up so much information on the way. And if I'd known that when I'd first started graduating, just simple things, really simple things like photographing work, having a website, really basic stuff that I I didn't get taught that at university. We were taught to make the work and about the context around the work, but how to, approach galleries, how to market yourself, how to create kind of an image around the work, how to juggle maybe a job. And I mean, luckily enough, I didn't have to have a job, but a lot of people do have to have multiple jobs to support their art at the start. And everything, absolutely everything, I didn't really know about. And if I'd known about it, would the process have been quicker? Probably, and it probably would have been a lot easier. But I just loved sharing that knowledge, to be honest, and hopefully giving them the knowledge to then go on and do what they would like to do.
I agree. And I think it's because I've run the gallery for 12 years now and I have seen, you know, an entire range of the way people price their work, the way people approach you, the way people create delivery notes, so all this, and from highly professional to absolutely not a clue.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Imogen Bone, who's one of my artists and who I interviewed very early on in the an art to it podcast series, she studied illustration at Falmouth, and she said actually that gave you a very good grounding in business because you, as well as being taught the skill of being an illustrator, you were also taught, well, this is how you work to a brief, and this is how you work to a delivery deadline, and this is how you do this, which in the fine and the applied arts, you're not taught at all.
No, I think Loughborough's textiles course is really kind of industrial led. Um, it, and the fine art course, although it's focused on technique, and it misses um that section really of the knowledge of how to actually be an artist after graduation and after
And it's
graduating, like,
being a business, you
and
have
being a
to
business.
be a business. And do you think that you've gained all these practical skills, but do you think you need to have entrepreneurial drive as well? Do you think having that makes a difference?
I do think 100% you need that as well. I mean, you can have an amazing body of work, but if you don't know how to market it or don't have that kind of consistency in how you're kind of communicating to your audience, I do think, you're not going to get found, you're not going to get seen, and you do have to think outside the box. Recently, for like an example, I sell mainly in America, and due to everything going on at the moment with the new tariffs and just generally, my sales had dipped from America. So I could sort of try and continue to push that, or I don't, worry or whatever. But I've thought, well, no, this is now an opportunity to kind of expand my UK market, and I've applied for more shows and changed the direction. And I think it's just simple things, simple, like, kind of work, but it is working it out, and it is trying. You have to be consistent, and you have to have that constant drive. As especially at the start, I think it can be so demoralizing when you're not selling the work, you're making the work, and it's hanging around, and you have to have that inner drive and commitment and keeping on going. And yeah, I think it's important to have those skills. I try and learn as much as I can, from podcasts, from chatting to people, from different ways to help me kind of build my own business, and also market myself better.
I was going to ask that, have there been, as you've gone along, particularly with selling overseas into America, have there been other businesses, other creatives you've looked at and thought, yeah, I'm going to learn from how they did that?
Yeah, I mean, constantly at shows, which is why I love doing those. You meet people of all different, levels within the career, like they're at the start, some are at the kind of the different areas. And those conversations are so invaluable because you learn so much from others, and they hopefully learn from you as well. They people give having these conversations, you get a different perspective. It's knowledge that you didn't know you needed. It's one of those things that, like, you never know what comes from these things, and that's so important to know and get out into the field and make connections, talk to other people in the field. What are they doing? Um, and I do listen to a lot of stuff online, podcasts and things, just to try and keep me in the loop and make me think of different ways. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily even be the same business, as in the arts. I think you can take and pick and choose things, other ideas that people have had within their own company, and apply it to your own.
And did you have, say, pre the viral reel, when you were starting to go down the commercial route, did you have any sort of idea of what success would look like? Did you think, oh, if I get to X, that's going to be success for me? And are you pushing that further all the time now?
So I suppose at the beginning, it was a case of I want to be able to make enough to be able to do this as my full-time job. That was genuine my goal. I didn't have like big dreams of having X amount of followers. I didn't want to be in the best galleries in the world. It was never that kind of goal. Um, I just wanted to be happy in what I did, enjoy making artwork, push the boundaries of pattern, and create a business that I could do full time. That was sort of the benchmark. I didn't know any artists at that point that were doing it as a full time job that weren't, of course, within the kind of the teaching field. Um, and that was my basic aim. Obviously, that came relatively quickly. Um, and from then on, now I'm so passionate about creating patterns, and I'm the drive for me now is what else, what next can I make that's special, that draws people in? What technique I can discover? And I think really it's the work that drives me, not the numbers. It's not, oh right, okay. I mean, obviously I would, love to have 1 million followers, but also it's not really the numbers in that sense. It's not that I want more people to follow me out. I'm just really passionate about the work. And obviously the more people I share the work with, the better. But it's the work that drives me. What else can I make that's better, bigger? The vases have gone huge and I'm enjoying doing that. And yeah, it's the work that drives me.
And so, in your typical day or your week or a quarter, do you set aside time to think, right, this is development time. This is time where I am thinking about what next. Where can I take this?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. It's summer is a very busy period. Usually that kind of real development period comes in January. I take pretty much 4 weeks experimentation, drawing, sketching, looking at kind of where I want to take the work, where I'm going to take the work in the year, having all my events planned out as well, the calendar kind of planned out. But I absolutely take time to do that. And I actually get really inspired when I'm on holiday as well, because I think with lots of artists, their studios are at home. So you have that constant, it's easy to not separate yourself from your work. And me just being fully removed from the house and area and being in a new setting, I take obviously a lot of inspiration from nature, patterns. We went to Porto last year and obviously the tiles there are amazing. And that was so inspirational. And I brought that back as in the images, and I created a whole new range of work inspired sort of by the patterns and kind of layouts that I was experiencing there. So I always try and step away from the studio, but I also do absolutely dedicate development time. I think you have to do that because otherwise the work becomes either repetitive, and I mean I don't enjoy doing repetitive work anyway. So I think that way it keeps it fresh and keeps new ideas kind of coming.
And you said summer is busy, and I know you've got a show coming up, so I'm not going to delay this too much longer. But I do ask everybody, the title of the podcast is An Art to It. So, Emily, do you think there's an art to running a creative business?
I do. I think it's a juggling act of commitment, hard work, having the product that's something that draws people in, and a little bit of luck along the way. If a video can go viral on Instagram, then that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so interesting that you just don't know what's going to capture somebody's imagination. You can
Yeah.
do something you think is really fantastic and it, you know, drops like a stone. And some things that just, I mean, I haven't had as many views as that, nowhere near it, but, why did that one work?
Exactly, exactly. And I think as well with Instagram, the algorithm is always changing, and it changes from week to week. So, but I think as long as you just keep posting what you enjoy and love, then that translates to the people watching.
And just on that subject, which is slightly off tangent before we finish, do you use just Instagram, or are you doing TikTok? And do you use Pinterest and all the other ways to get your work out there?
Yet I use all the ways. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. How I do it is make one video and then upload it to all the platforms. I don't make individual kind of content for each because I find that too time consuming, honestly. And I try and post at least 3 times a week, sometimes not. This week, last week, I've been a bit rubbish because I've got so many events on. And then, but you have to sort of let those moments go and not be too strict on yourself. I think you need to enjoy the videoing and uploading to Instagram. You can't force a situation. I don't want to upload content that I don't feel is interesting or reflective of the work just because I need to post. I sort of, yeah, I accept that times I won't be as good and post 3 times a week.
Well, I'll expect to see an Instagram live from your event tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Emily, thank you so much. I really enjoyed that and hearing all about your beautiful, joyful blobs and colour.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.